no one would have believed. That's how it starts. You know what book I'm talking about. I, today, am going to be talking about V1, the only, War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. My name's Nick from Rational Readers. How are you doing? There is really nothing you can say to oversell the War of the Worlds. It is a science fiction classic in the most literal sense. It practically introduced the world to the idea of an alien invasion. It practically created the idea of a grey, for God's sake. That's where the root of the grey alien is this story, despite the fact that the Martians themselves are tentacled octopus creatures. But we'll get to that. War of the Worlds was originally written and published, actually serialized, in 1897 by Pearson's magazine, and later in 1898 published as a full-length novel. And it deals with the invasion of Earth, or rather more specifically England, by Martians, this super technological race from, well, where else? Mars. Now, there have been so many retellings, adaptations, and reiterations of this story that it's really hard to filter out the original text. I mean, you've got the Tom Cruise film, which was god-awful. You've got the 50s film, where the Martians aren't even in tripods. But then you've got other adaptations like Jeff Wayne's musical War of the Worlds, which in my consideration is a goddamn masterpiece, because it, although cuts down, it sticks with the original text. Now, the original text is from the viewpoint of a narrator whose name was never given, but we do know he's a journalist, and he does have a passing interest in space because he knows this astronomer, Ogilvy. Now, when flares start erupting from Mars, he goes and sees Ogilvy, and they look at the planet and they're like, what could it be? There couldn't be life on Mars, could it? Anyway, it is. That's discovered very quickly. Well, in the course of the timeline of the book actually goes into quite a lot of detail and describes a lot of things, which is just fantastic. The description in the book is fantastic, just brilliant. So the capsules that the Martians are coming in, they land on Earth and they create massive craters. It's all within like a kind of like 50-mile radius of I can't remember what it is. Well, of course it is, it's Horsell Common. And whereas with some other adaptations where the chaos starts virtually straight away, there is a lot of build-up in this book. You've got people gathering around the capsule, coming and going, people effectively getting used to it. I mean, it's there for a few days, just sitting there. You get people going up to it to start with, and they're kind of like burning themselves on the steel, and then eventually you get people like coming and just seeing it as like a sideshow, and they're like, oh, it's just a thing that is now. And eventually the capsule opens, and that's when the chaos starts. A heat ray rises up. Well, first of all, you got the Martian looking around, and everybody's like freaking out. And you've got to imagine this was published in the late 19th century, so nobody had ever considered anything like this. This bug-eyed octopus creature with no lips, no arms, it's just literally got tentacles, and it's just fantastic how it's described. It looks so weak. That's basically the impression you get. It's so, how can this be a threat? And that's the trend that's the idea that stays sort of throughout this story, is that these creatures, they are weak, but it's their technology. They've progressed so far with technology that they are able to just completely rely on it. Anyway, the heat wave comes up, fries a bunch of people, and they start building their tripods. And the narrator, he just legs it. He goes home, he tries to get his wife out of there. Yeah, there's a whole bit where he just takes her, and then he goes back, and it's raining and it's thundering, and by that time you've got the tripods wandering around. And there's just this bit where it's raining, and he sees the tripods over the trees, like the silhouettes, and it's just so eerie, and it's so like, oh my god, that's really scary. And you can put yourself there. It's so well described, it's so well, but it doesn't drag it out. Unlike some other writers who they drag out the descriptions, H.G. Wells describes concisely. He really just pins it down straight away. Unlike me, just rambling on. Anyway, what follows is a trek across the English countryside as the Martians basically destroy everything in their wake. There's nothing that can stop them, not anything at all. And humans try, and they actually succeed to an extent. They actually manage to topple a bunch of tripods, but not nearly enough. And eventually human forces get devastated. They're fleeing as much as the narrator is. Eventually he gets to London, and this is where it kind of ends, or at least humanity does. This would be the end. The Martians just take England, no problem. And he sees the last of the refugees getting out of England, defended by the now famous ship Thunderchild, of which I'm very happy to say they named a ship after in Star Trek. This ship in Star Trek! An Akira class, USS Thunderchild, named after the Thunderchild in War of the Worlds. Anyway, moving on. At this point the Martians have won. They're not going anywhere, or at least as far as anybody can tell. And we just have to kind of survive after that. And that's what the narrator is doing. He's just trying to survive. And he meets a bunch of different people, goes through all these different scenarios, sees the red weed growing, the vegetation on Mars, and eventually gets trapped in the basement of this house where he's basically up close and personal with the Martians. He can see everything they're doing. He can see them building new machines. He can see them feeding, and the feeding is horrific because they not so much drink, they siphon human blood into themselves. That's how they sustain themselves. And this is when he starts to speculate about what they might be, how they might live. And it's speculated that the Martians actually invaded Earth, not out of conquest. It's actually theorized that the Martians are relatively peaceful creatures usually, but Mars is dying. Their insane amount of technology has kept them going for as long as it can, and they're just dying. And they actually have a human-like race on Mars, which is short, grey, and has large black eyes. You can see where the greys came from now, and they use them for the food source, and they are kind of like they're not implied to be overly sentient. They are cattle. They're the cattle for the Martians. But Mars is dying, and so they come to Earth to try and terraform the planet so they have a new home. And they don't consider humanity as anything, really. They consider us nothing but the same livestock as they've got on their planet. As to why they're so comfortable with just wiping us out and using us for food. And this is one of the points I like most about the story, is the fact that the aliens are not considered to be some conquesting force. They're not evil. It's only the human interpretation that they're coming and destroying our lands, that they're coming and destroying our homes, that makes us think they're evil. They're not. They are just trying to save themselves. They don't actually consider us as a life form on par with them. all they see is their planet is dying. This planet has nothing but this cattle on. So, you know, we just go down, clear land, terraform. It's not a big issue. It's an engineering project. And this is why the ending of War of the Worlds is so interesting. I mean, people say it's played out. It's a cliche at this point, but this was the book to originally do it. But I'll get to that. Eventually, the narrator escapes from his imprisonment, and he goes out, and he's just basically, I can't do this. There has just been too much death, so much devastation. So he goes back to London, and he decides to kill himself. But he decides to basically give himself to the Martians. The Martians aren't exactly acting usual. They're kind of lethargic. Their machines are toppling into different buildings, and nobody knows what's going on. And eventually it's revealed that they're dying. They're just randomly dying. And it's because, not because of the humans, like I say, they don't consider humans a threat. They don't consider humans anything. It's because of the Earth. The Earth is poison to them. And because of the bacteria and viruses we have that we've got an immunity to, the Martians have sterilized their planet. They don't have anything like that, so they have no immunity to it, and so it's killing them. That, coupled with the increased gravity and thickness of the atmosphere, is just, Earth is too much. It's not habitable for them. They've tried, and it's poison. And I think that's the biggest point I take away from this book, is the fact that no matter what humans try to do, no matter the story of the narrator, the Martians, their story would have been exactly the same no matter what. They would have come to Earth, they would have got sick and died, because it's like us trying to go to a different planet and encountering God knows what. Like we're being attacked by ants, and it was like, oh yeah, just get a flamethrower, just clear the ant nests and stuff. But it's some kind of poison in the air, some kind of pollutant that eventually wears us down and kills us. Now, there were speculations about another attack from Mars, and in the original book it was considered that Martians might go and try and colonize Venus. Now, I know that there's other adaptations that say the Martians come back, and there's actually an official sequel to War of the Worlds by Stephen Baxter that says the Martians come back. But even though I do like The Massacre of Mankind by Stephen Baxter, I considered the ending of War of the Worlds definitive in its own right, because I don't think the Martians would come back. They consider the Earth completely dangerous, off limits. It's lethal to them, you know. But I don't know, if you disagree with me, if you think the Martians would have come back as they do in Massacre of Mankind, then let me know below. Tell me if you've read War of the Worlds, everyone should have. Tell me your favourite adaptation of the War of the Worlds. And I just hope you all have a great day. See you next time.